Greece, Rome, Britain, France, India, every grand civilization in history has united its people around an imaginative mythology. Not merely great ideas, not philosophy or law, but stories. Characters. A cast of figures that embody who a people are, what they fear, what they aspire to become. Hi, my name is Kirk Barbera, and I'm the creator of the Literary Canon Club. And I'm here to talk to you about 2026's new curriculum for the rest of the year for the Literary Canon Club and why you should join me and others in discussing the great imaginative works of America. America is unique in world history. We're a modern nation, an Enlightenment nation, born in an age of reason and print and conscious authorship. When America needed its mythology in its early years, it created a unique one. It built it deliberately by writers who knew exactly what they were doing. For the rest of 2026, the 250th anniversary of the United States of America, the Literary Canon Club is going to be exploring the literary classics that built the American imagination. I'm calling the series America Literary Inventions and its Discontents. Invention here means invention. It's something that did not exist before. These writers brought multiple strains of history, folklore, philosophy, and experience together and created something genuinely new, a new character, a new mythology, a new figure, a new type of warning. Each month centers on one core short work of fiction, approximately 75 pages, a substantial but manageable amount. Every month comes with an optional companion poem and a recommended film for those who want to go deeper. Check out the Literary Canon website to see further. Our first author is Washington Irving, who is alive from 1783 to 1859. And now by the mid-1700s, something new had happened on this continent prior to the 1776 revolution. The people that were here, that had moved here and had developed their own societies within the new continent, they spoke English, but it wasn't the same English already. Many had married some of the indigenous women that had lived here. These new peoples could move throughout a forest the way that no Englishman could. They were second and third generations already. They were born here, shaped by this land, shaped by the untapped savagery of the land. So they had savagery and they had civilization within them. They were neither fully British nor fully native. The British had a word for them, American, and they didn't mean it as a compliment. In 1782, a French immigrant named Crèvecoeur asked the question out loud for the first time. Quote, "What then is the American, this new man?" Someone with a strange mixture of blood, which you will find in no other country, leaving behind all ancient prejudices, receiving new ones from a new mode of life. The question was now in the air. Irving, writing 30 years later, answered this question not with an essay, but with a story. His Legend of Sleepy Hollow takes an old world European folklore and plants it in American soil and pits two American archetypes against it and against each other. One of these archetypes represents everything America thinks it's becoming: educated, modern, entrepreneurial, looking toward the future. The other represents what it's afraid of losing: physical, rooted, belonging to the land itself. Irving didn't tell you which one should and would win. He lets the story decide and the reader decide. And the answer can often be more uncomfortable than you'd expect. In Rip Van Winkle, another Irving story we'll be reading, the American sleeps through his own revolution, wakes up, and the world has changed entirely around him. Is he comic? Is this tragic? What does this figure, and why does he seem so oblivious? And why does that obliviousness seem so American? Irving doesn't resolve the tension. Again, he sets it up. He just shows you it exists. In August, we will be exploring Nathaniel Hawthorne short stories. The focus of this will be the invention of the very unique scientific fiction story, the American scientific fiction story, which is both an idealization of the American scientist and the entrepreneur and the one who goes striving for the greatness out there. And it is a moral warning, not only a villain, but something deeper and more profound. In September, we will be covering a short novella by Herman Melville. Now, Herman Melville started his career writing adventure stories, very popular ones. He'd lived among the Typee people in the South Pacific, sailed on whaling ships, seen things most Americans would never see. People loved his stories. He was a hit in America. He was known as the man who lived among cannibals. Then he wrote Moby Dick, which began as another adventure story based on his own whaling experiences. But something happened in the writing. It turned dark and existential and even a little nihilistic. Ahab's pursuit of the white whale became a meditation on whether the universe has any meaning at all, the heroic nihilism in search of an answer the universe may not give. We'll be reading not Moby Dick, but we'll be reading Benito Cereno, an overlooked novella, also on the surface an adventure story, a sea rescue, a mystery, but underneath it's a portrait of the American hero as someone who is genuinely decent, democratic, and incapable of malice, and completely blind to what is happening directly in front of him. In October, we will of course be reading the spooky, the best of the spooky, Edgar Allan Poe. Now, most people think they understand Gothic literature, haunted castles, decaying aristocracies, ancient curses, the weight of centuries pressing down on the present. But here's the problem. America has no castles. We're a new nation. When Poe wanted to write Gothic fiction, he had to solve a problem no European writer had ever faced. So he created something unique. The Gothic without the castle. The European Gothic is about the past, the hereditary sin, the feudal obligation, the curse, and the bloodline. America was supposed to be free of all that. The New World, start fresh and build anew. No ancient burdens. Poe's insight, what if the decay isn't just in the stones? What if it's only psychological and in the mind? You don't need a castle, you just need a man alone with his own thoughts, his own refinement, and his own isolation. In November, we will be reading a short story by Mark Twain. In 1899, America is in the Gilded Age. It is the grandest and best productive era in the history of the world, and at the same time, it is building a story that pits the productive not as grand heroes, but as robber barons. This is the era of corruption in Tammany Hall, spoil system. The rhetoric of American virtue and democratic righteousness, right when it's at its pinnacle and at the epoch of it, it collapses inward. And in this story, Twain drops the story about the most virtuous town in America. The last month asks a question almost no one thinks to ask. Who invented Christmas? Not the Christmas we think we should be celebrating, or that we might hear in church we should be celebrating, but the actual Christmas that we celebrate. The carols, the gifts, the warm hearth, Santa Claus descending the chimney, the whole emotional landscape of it. The answer is, of course, American writers. And a handful of years in the early 1800s, they wrote a holiday into existence. I want to tell you how I read these texts and how I'll be exploring these with you, because I think it changes a lot about the conversation. So I think of it in terms of essentially three hats: the literature expert, the poet critic, and the cultural historian. So in the literature expert, you read closely, you look for specific words and images, you look for as the writers as craftsmen, the meaning lives in the form, not just the content. Most discussions summarize the plot and call it analysis. That's not what I do. That's not what we will be doing. That's where we will start with a quick plot synopsis, but that's not the point. The second hat is the poet critic. This is the synthesizer, the person who brings all the elements together and tries to soak out, squeeze out all the meaning that they can and the understanding from the actual story, the poem or the film itself. What is actually on screen? What is actually on the page? What do we see? And how does it help us understand what the author is trying to create if we put ourselves into the imaginative world of that author? And then lastly is the cultural historian. And this is a frame that I think changes a lot for these older works. You ask not just what the text means, but what it did in its era and afterward. What was America afraid of in 1843 when Nathaniel Hawthorne published The Birthmark? What was going on in the world that this unique story comes out of? When you read Benito Cereno by Herman Melville as a story, it's a gripping nautical mystery in and of itself. It's a wonderful story that will bring you a lot of joy, a lot of elevation and enlightenment in your life. But when you add to it the reading of a cultural historian, it becomes one of the most uncomfortable documents in American literature. A story about what America needed to not know about itself and what that cost. That's the conversation we'll be having, is all three of those hats. And in closing, just a quick word on how the club will work. We will meet once a month for 90 minutes on Sunday. Go to troubadour.studio/Literary Canon Club. So each month we will read one work as our core text. I'll provide you with an optional poem that I hope you'll read. A lot of these poems are very short. And also a movie that I hope, as you're trying to look for movies that month, add that to your list, I hope, because it will add a lot to your enjoyment of the story. Each month we'll meet for one live 90 minutes discussion. I'll lead it, but the room really shapes it. So I hope to see you in the Literary Canon Club for 2026. The goal will be to continue this into 2027. I'll have a new theme and new stories and new things that we'll explore next year. But start now, get in on things, and come learn about America and its literary inventions. I'll see you there.